We're going to turn the lens briefly now back to the economy and to look in a bit more detail at the European economy and what's in store over the coming period before turning back to geopolitics again at the end of the day. And I'd like to invite our two speakers to join me now on the stage to have this little dialogue. Enrico Letta, President of Jacques Delors Institute, former Prime Minister of Italy, and rapporteur for the EU Council on the future of the single market. Great to have you with us again. Please take a seat. And to give the business perspective, we have Alexandros Exarchou, Vice President of the Board of Directors and CEO of Intrakat. Welcome. Please take a seat. So I think we have half an hour now to devote ourselves to the European economy and what's happening. So I'm going to hand straight over to you, Mr. Letta, for your opening remarks.
First of all, thank you for the invitation. Thank you. A remarkable program this year. And I'm very glad just to share with you some thoughts about the future of the single market. That is the main topic today for the future of the European Union economy. And I would be more than happy to have a dialogue with the business here. Single market is the main part of our European economy. And this year we are at the 30th anniversary of the establishment of the single market. Greece was on board since the beginning. But we know that the future of the single market, of the European single market, is under threats, is under attack for many reasons. And this is why the European Council last June decided to ask for a high-level report on the future of the single market, to relaunch it in the future. And they asked me to prepare this report and to present it at the European Council next March. And this is why tomorrow I will be in town, in Athens, meeting the Prime Minister Mitsotakis to listen the Greek government position on the future on the single market. My two takes on this topic are, first, the single market is incomplete. We know very well that the single market is for freedoms. And the freedom of movement of services, goods, capital, and person. But the problem of the single market is that there's an asymmetric free movement. Because where we talk about goods, the single market is almost completed. When we talk about people, is enough completed, if I may say. But when we talk about services and capitals, the single market is really uncompleted. Capital, I would say, is a disaster. The single market isn't there when we talk about capitals. This is why the European financial system is so weak in comparison with the American one. And in services too, the single market is very weak. So first, big topic, how to complete it. How to complete it on capitals, how to complete it on services, how to try to have energy pushing for the completion of the single market in a moment in which, I have to be very, very frank on that, eliminating barriers, eliminating borders is not very à la mode. It is exactly the opposite. As soon we have a problem, we raise frontiers, we raise borders. The dream of the 80s, of the 90s, the Jacques Delors dream, to eliminating borders, eliminating barriers within the European Union was a dream, and this dream was really a catalyzer of energies. My generation grew up with this dream, the dream of overcoming barriers, overcoming borders. That was great. Today we are not in this mood. So there's a problem of rules, there's a problem of the enforcement of rules. I say enforcement because member states learned one lesson, and the lesson is that when you are 27 in the European Council, it's very complicated to stop one decision. It's easier to stop the enforcement at home of the decision that the European Council takes. And this is the way in which the enforcement is becoming also the other problem of the single market, with a lot of divergences and asymmetries. And the second main point is the fact that the single market was created and worked successfully for decades in a world in which Europe was really the center of the world economically. And we were in an inward-looking mood in the single market. So the topic was, we want to have free movement within Europe. We want to have competition rules within the European Union, so fragmenting, cutting monopolies, and so on and so forth. The big problem is that today, in the last 5-6 years, the big changes at world level are changing completely the way in which we have to think at the single market. I just mentioned, very brief before concluding, we started with Brexit. Brexit was the first attack to the single market. And the attack was not only because of Brexit, but because of the negotiation post-Brexit. Was a negotiation where the United Kingdom wanted to divide us and to have the so-called cherry picking, and to say, we want a part, some part of the single market, but not the entire single market. And we, Michel Barnier, the negotiator for the European Union, we resisted, and we said, no, the single market is unique. If you want to stay, you have to take the entire single market. So the 4 freedoms, not only the freedom of movement of capitals, for instance. The single market is a unity. The second, COVID. COVID was an attack to the single market. But we won, because we created the single market of vaccine, the single market of medicines, and so on. Then the war today, and the war with the attack to the energy union, to the energy supply chain. So today the single market is under attack because of the world around us. And the key point is that since some years or some months, we started talking about topics that we never had at the table of prime ministers or Council of Ministers or European institutions. The terms European sovereignty, European security, open strategic autonomy, all these terms are there to say the same thing. And the same thing is that we were dependent on energy from Russia and from the Middle East, on technology from China, on security from the US. Today, we keep our alliance with the US, but for the rest, we have to be independent. So we have to transform our single market being independent on energy, on technology, on raw materials, and so on and so forth. And it is complicated. And the main, I think, task and the main mission for the future is how to get this strategic autonomy, this European sovereignty, without killing the level playing field. That is the reason why entrepreneurs are successful in Europe. So the 4 freedoms. The 4 freedoms with competition rules, enforcing 4 freedoms. And of course, everything is linked also to the fact that this legislature at European level, and I stop here, is dedicated to the green transition and the digital transition. And we have to keep this mission, this momentum, through the transformation of the single market and the impulse of the single market. So I wanted just to set up the scene of the main topic. And in my view, these topics will be the very core of the next European legislature, with one added point, and the added point that is very important and very interesting for a country like Greece is the enlargement process. Because we know very well, and von der Leyen in Tirana some days ago immediately said clearly that we want to share with the countries of Western Balkans some fields of the single market. So that will be, before the enlargement, one of the topics in the relationship with these countries. So I think the next legislature will have this topic at the very core of the attention. That is, for us, I think, a great challenge, and I think also a fantastic way to transform our European Union in a more assertive unity of countries and in a more successful economy.
Thank you very much. Before I open this up to a Q&A, and also I'd like to invite anybody from the floor to participate. We haven't had that yet today. I'd like to invite Alexandros to respond to what you've heard from a business perspective.
First of all, delighted to be here. I'm particularly happy to be able to exchange ideas with you, that you're a person with your ex-capacity as Prime Minister that handled significant decisions for European Union at a very critical time for Greece. Now, of course, my way of looking at things is, of course, financial and business. But, you know, I understand that the single market concept was more political than financial. It was, if I remember correctly, an idea that came out as a result of a war. And it was developed in an attempt to make sure that European countries will never, ever again see the horrifics of an internal war within its territory. And it worked. Free trade, free movement of goods and persons, make people within the European Union closer. We have not had a war for 80 years or almost, but all of a sudden, we start looking at wars at the borders of the European Union. Northeast and now Middle East, bringing war very close to what we wanted to avoid. And from a financial point of view, are we sure that what the people that founded the European Union imagined or dreamed, as you said, is what we're living today? What, for instance, Greece suffered the last 10 years. Single market is very important for us. Greece changed as a result of its participation in the European Union. And of course, Greek companies, Greek people had significant advantages as a result of its participation. But we entered with dreams, and the dream was of a single market. We never at that time envisaged that we were going to lose sovereignty, but we exceeded sovereignty in the idea of a European Union. A European Union that has no internal borders and therefore has external borders. And Greece is at the border of the European Union. So we thought, for instance, that if Greece is under attack, then the defense of Greece is a European problem and not a Greek one. The cost of defending Greece and the border, it's a cost of the European Union and not necessarily a Greek problem. The way to fight back a situation of bankruptcy of some entities, some countries of the European Union, especially the southern countries, in Greece specifically, cannot be dealt in such a strict way, in a way that says, it's your problem now, deal with it, suffer with it. We cannot do anything any longer. We're not union in this stage. So find a way to get over bankruptcy with the most hard currency in the world, something that has never been done, to my knowledge, anywhere in the world. And Greece managed to succeed in it and suffers. People, average Greek, is suffering for the last 15 years, but eventually we managed to overcome the problem. Miraculously, I would say, and I personally didn't expect, but it happens. Now we regain the famous investment grade. We lived an era where the European euro, the common currency, was different in the north than the south. The north was investment grade euro. The south, and especially Greece, had junk euro. Nobody was to invest in Greece, nobody to do anything in Greece. So if you ask me if I consider that the European single market succeeded, in my opinion, it failed. And it didn't necessarily fail as a result of Brexit, because the exit started with Grexit. It was not requested by Greece, but it was threatened. So when somebody threatens the exit, it has to accept the possibility of another country not liking the situation and deciding to exit itself. So I agree that Brexit was indeed a serious blow to the idea of the single market, but to some extent, it was driven by the politics of the European Union itself. The same way that I think that the European Union is failing to provide the leadership necessary, not only for the economy, but also for politics. We have a war that Russia created. It struck every single entity in Europe because of all of a sudden significant increase of interest rates. We lived an era where interest rates were zero, and all of a sudden it goes up. Nobody can control that. Nobody's fault. But then again, a country that had to face bankruptcy and managed to avoid it, all of a sudden is left again alone with high interest rates, and nobody can help. There's no mechanism to assist because you are on yourself, on your own. You are not a member of a union. Deal with it again. So deal with the defense. You have to defend yourself. You have to defend against whomever enemy you may have. It's not a European problem. It is part of the deficit, whatever you spend for defense. So you shouldn't do it too much because we are controlling, a very strict control as to what the member states' deficits could be. If something happened in Greece in terms of defense, it's a Greek problem. If something happened in Greece as a result of a war that Greece has not created, financially, it's again a Greek problem. And we're asking, where is the union? Is the intention of Europe to create a real union or not? If it is, that means we have common borders, common financial politics, and we have mechanisms to support weaker states. The same way that any other union in the world, especially United States, is doing for too many years. Either that, or we maintain sovereignty. If we do maintain sovereignty, then we are allowed to help people that they suffer, to provide subsidies to people that they cannot afford to pay taxation, to protect our own people and our borders with the means that we can. Probably at that time with a different currency, but not with the hardest currency in the world. How can anyone protect the citizens with a currency that is controlled by somebody else who is not sharing the same ideas? We are very much pro-European. Greece especially is a state that every single one of Greek people that I know and have spoken to is fanatics in terms of single market and European Union. But we are asking, are we a union or not? So, from a business perspective, we have done the impossible, and we have managed to overcome something that seemed to be impossible 10 years ago. Within the European Union, with the strongest currency in the world, we managed to regain investment grade, and we managed again to survive. We will do it as many times as necessary, I assume, but with what cost? So, if I have a reflection to what you said, it would be this. The bet of European Union will succeed or not when the countries will decide what exactly do they want. Do they want a union or do they want a single market? If it was a single market, we understand the rules. If it's union, we again understand the rules, but we need to know the rules, especially those countries of the South that they suffer more than anybody else as a result of the financial crisis.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you want to reply to this. And indeed, you raised many of the obstacles yourselves in your opening remarks. I would agree that the single market was as much a political project as an economic one. And if we go back to the context it followed, it was a period, a very different historical context, end of the Cold War. It was very much about reunification of Germany, integration of Germany into the European economy, a much more positive period. And there's been a lot of water under the bridge since then. And we have a very changed political context, geopolitical context, and also a very changed economic context in Europe as well. And earlier today, we talked a little bit about Europe in the conversation with Joseph Stiglitz. And there is a sense in which Europe is falling behind. The whole project or target of catching up Europe and the US, that convergence hasn't really happened. Europe is facing a much more dynamic Asia right now. And I guess many people might ask, is the project to remake the single union or finish the project of the single union, or does Europe need an altogether different growth model after what we've seen over the past few years? We look at a lot of the heavy industry in Europe, especially in the German economy, which is very energy intensive. It's very dependent on cheap energy from Russia. 50% is closed down. Much industry has shifted to the US, so there's a fundamental competitiveness problem. So is your vision of finishing the single market project the answer, or do we need something more radical even than that?
I think we need something more radical, because completing something that we didn't complete in 30 years can't be mobilizing energies and political or business economic energies. That is clear. This is why I think the main topic is how to be able to discuss and to build up a toolbox at European level on having this open strategic autonomy, this independence, this security, I would say this European sovereignty, because we don't have today a European sovereignty on many issues. We don't, for many reasons. First of all, because on many issues, the competences are still at the member state level. The European Union is a very asymmetric architecture, and that's a great problem. I remember the first days after the COVID, we started asking, where's Europe? Where's Europe? Everything is fragmented, and Europe wasn't there for a simple reason, because member states didn't want to have on health European competences. We wanted, as member states, to keep competences on health, for instance, at national level. And we understood there suddenly that it's impossible today to deal with such a level of challenges only at national level. So we decided to have some changes, and we overtook the crisis thanks to the decisions that we took together. But I would like to add one point, if I may say. The single market is a political project, but the single market is also an economic project, a real economy project, because all our entrepreneurs, all our business, today we know that being within the single market means having an advantage that is enormous in terms of selling products or services, working in other countries without borders. That is a fantastic boost, a fantastic boost. I always make the example of a country, of a rich country like Norway. Norway is out from the European Union, but Norway pays every year a fee to the European Union to be part of the single market. Because for their business, for their entrepreneurs, for their financial system, being part of the single market is an advantage. So they pay to the 27, to the European budget, to be within the single market. And this is the added value for business, for entrepreneurs, for the different economic systems of having the possibility to be in this so large market. The main problem is the fact that, as you mentioned, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's impossible to have a working single market on real economy without having a working single market on financial economy. Because on financial economy, the fact that we don't have this single market, it's a great problem. I mentioned one point, the banking system. We have a banking system in Europe, or the telecom system, or the energy system. We take these three crucial fields in our economy, and in these three, we don't have European champions. We have just national champions in all the different member states. Why? Because in each public opinion, it's impossible to allow your government, your national government, to sell your incumbent in terms of telecom or energy or big bank to another incumbent in another country. The risk to consider yourself as a loser in comparison with another as a consequence the fact that we have a very fragmented system in telecom, in energy, and in the banking system. So we have in each country a big giant at national level that is not a giant at world level. And so the consequence of that is that the US are leading on finance. On telecom, we have small operators at European level in comparison with the American operators and with the Chinese operators, because we continue to think that the national level is important, maybe for political reasons, I don't know, but it is a big limit in terms of European competitiveness. And we suddenly understood that if we are not competitive at European level, we have an enormous problem in the world of today. So this is why I see all the problems. I mentioned many of these problems, and my report will have, the first part of the report will be the list of the problems and the list of the obstacles that we are having today. And please tell me examples of obstacles, because I would like to raise these examples and to present my report full of concrete examples, boots on the ground. But the key point I would like to relaunch here is the fact that in the world of today, the only possibility as Europeans to be competitive is to be united. And the main problem is, for instance, the fact, and maybe I put one very complicated issue on the table, the fact that when we have a problem, and when we have a big problem, the different member states, they are asking to the European Union for more freedom in terms of state aid liberty, and to say we want to use state aid to help companies or to help regions, and asking the European Union to refrain from apply the European rules on state aid. And this is the end of the European Union for a simple reason, because the use of state aid is, of course, conditioned by two characteristics of the different countries. One, biggest countries, of course, they have more room to intervene in state aids. And second, non-indebted countries, they have more room. So that is very simple to say. There's one country which has room for having state aid, and it is Germany, of course, big and without debt. And there are countries with high debt or small countries without the possibility to use state aid. And in the last period, the use of state aid was the way to tackle problems or to resolve problems. And it is not the correct one, for a simple reason, is the way to fragment the single market. And the fragmentation of the single market means the end of the European competitiveness. This is why I think at the end of the day, we need a united fiscal capacity at the European level. Otherwise, it would be very complicated to keep together the differences between a big country like Germany and a small country or indebted countries like mine, for instance, Italy. This is why I think we need a united Europe in this very period. And I strongly fight in favor of a united Europe. And I think that in this very moment we need to fight for this European sovereignty and to think that if we don't, the fragmentation will weaken all of us, and the fragmentation weakening of all of us will be the best ally of China, of India, of all the other countries, even of the American, thanks to the IRA subsidies industry in comparison with others. And I think we have to help our industry, and the only way to help our economy, our industry, to create the business financial system at European level is to complete the single market and to transform it in a European sovereign area. That is the main goal.
Thank you, and thank you very much for sharing the work that you're doing on this project on the single market. We have to finish this session, but just very quickly, Alexandros, there was a request there for problems. As somebody working in the construction sector, an industry that's been struggling certainly over this past year, what would you enumerate as the biggest problems, just in a nutshell, because we have to.
I can offer a lot of examples of problems, but what I would like to say as a retrospect, in respect to what you said. In construction industry, for instance, in Greece, is suffering currently. I mean, we are living the best era of the last 25 years, because all of a sudden, from having no projects, we have plenty of projects, but huge problem with the pricing. The pricing is not a Greek interest rate. Is not a Greek phenomenon, is a European one. It's not dealt the same way that, for instance, Europe approached the COVID problem. COVID was a problem for every single state in Europe, north and south the same. And it was tackled effectively and solved effectively, because everybody had a common interest to solve this problem. Interest rates increase of prices, which increases immense. Especially because the economy is not at the same level that the German one or the French one, is not dealt the same way. And yes, there are thousands of examples of this inequality that needs rebalancing at the European level towards the idea of what you just said, which is a European sovereignty. It's either European sovereignty, which means United States of Europe, or single market, a simple financial instrument, which is very useful, great, but allows member states to maintain sovereignty. That's a critical decision, and in my opinion, affects the economy of the member states significantly.
Thank you. Well, thank you both very much, gentlemen. That's the end of this session.